Thank you for joining us here in Milwaukee. We're Matthias Hunt and Ryan Overturf. We're here on the SCG Tour, sponsored by the folks at Ultimate Guard. Paul Myers and Caleb Durward playing the first of our quarterfinal matches. The number 2 seed, Paul Myers, is on what's really been one of the most storied decks in the history of Modern. Affinity, it seems to be good just every year, every event we cover. Up against a real unknown, though, Caleb Durward. This is a Bant Spirits deck playing a lot of these real cards that are imprinted in the last year. We see cards like Rattle Chains, like Spell Queller,
Mausoleum Wanderer, Selfless Spirit.
Yeah, they're pairing up with some of the older Spirit cards, Geist of St. Traft and Drog Skull Captain. So we're underway. Paul, as the 2 seed, is on the play. He starts on Inkmoth Nexus and Vault Scourge. Caleb just plays a land. A second Inkmoth from Paul yields Arcbound Ravager. So the modular creature from Dark Steel, one of really the trademarks of the Affinity deck. And he makes a Mem Knight. So Paul's put 5 cards on the board in the first 2 turns, and that's really how Affinity starts games.
And something about Caleb's deck is once he's behind, outside of Collected Company, it's difficult for him to really get ahead. He needs to have all of his cards just individually be better than what's happening on Paul's side, and Paul already has a Ravager. Could easily have another one of the 2-mana Haymakers here and really start to push very far ahead of Caleb.
End step, Caleb will get his first land. It's Temple Garden. Yeah, I'm wondering if Caleb can really play from behind here. He does have card advantage, but he doesn't have too much removal in his deck. 3 copies of Path to Exile is it when it comes to kill spells.
And when it comes to dealing with the Arcbound Ravager, usually takes at least 2 removal spells.
Right. See Caleb's hand, 2 Selfless Spirits, Phantasmal Image, some more lands available. We figured this first game on the draw is going to be a very tough one for Caleb. Though he's got some good plays going on. Draws Path to Exile for the turn. And his first play will be Selfless Spirit, able to play it pain-free thanks to Botanical Sanctum, the fast land from Kaladesh.
Yeah, Sanctum, big upgrade for a deck like this. Pretty hungry on colored mana.
So the 2/1 flying spirit can sacrifice to give all of Caleb's other spirits, or other creatures rather, make them indestructible. And a 3rd Nexus for Paul. This one is of the Blinkmoth variety. So some poison, some regular damage.
The reason that Botanical Sanctum matters so much is that Caleb on turn 1, he has a Noble Hierarch and a Mausoleum Wanderer deck. So it's blue and green spells he wants to cast on the first turn of the game.
So he will activate Inkmoth Nexus. That's the one with Infect and swing. Memnite, Ravager, Nexus. Now deciding if Signal Pest wants to join in to battle cry the other creatures.
If you're Caleb, blocking on Signal Pest seems pretty easy if that attacks.
Right. It's a 0/1. It does not pump itself to 1/1. It pumps the other creatures. So Paul will leave that one at home.
And with this combat, blocking on Ravager is pretty easy because Caleb still has the Path to Exile in his hand.
Right, so the 2/1 goes in front of the 1/1 Ravager, or rather the 2/1 Ravager. Paul will have to sacrifice 2 artifacts to it if he wants it to stay alive. We'll see if he makes that play. Looks like he's going to save it. Vault Scourge and Memnite eaten by the Ravager, so it is a 3/3. It takes care of the Selfless Spirit, and 2 poison, importantly, is put onto Caleb.
And I like this because Myers still has 1 mana untapped. It will enable him to animate a creature land in response to a Path to Exile if it happens.
Ooh, but now he takes the mana down and plays Signal Pest. So if Caleb Path to Exiles right now, Paul has no choice but to throw those 1/1 counters onto Signal Pest. A far worse choice, I think, than Inkmoth Nexus.
Very much do not like casting the Signal Pest here, and it looks like it's going to punish him.
It's not, that play does not respect the card Path to Exile. Go back to Caleb's turn, plays a Breeding Pool, and actually says go. So
Caleb, I believe he picked up a 2nd Path to Exile.
But he can't play it. He doesn't
can't
have
play
the
it
lands
on this turn, but he might be trying to trap Paul into sacrificing a bunch of artifacts in response to the first one. They've seen deck list. Paul knows Caleb only has 3 copies. The likelihood of having 2 is pretty low.
A mode switch here from Paul. He animates the Blinkmoth Nexus, the one that does regular damage, and goes to attack. Spell Queller flashed into play by Caleb Durward. It's going to attempt to block Signal Pest. That one certainly then will be sacrificed away to the Ravager. Battle Cry means that the Ravager's attacking for 4 and the Nexus for 2. And actually, Paul's going to make the other play. He's going to sack Arcbound Ravager to move its counters onto Signal Pest.
And that's exactly what Caleb wants him to do.
Right.
Taking no damage off the Ravager this turn, and now he has a clean Path to Exile on the Signal Pest.
He takes 2 damage off the Nexus. And then Paul will post-combat play a Vault Scourge. But Caleb is successfully trading cards 1 for 1 while keeping his life total high. So we go to Caleb's first turn. And you're right. Path to Exile, Phantasmal Image. The tough point for Caleb is he has no more lands this turn and he has 1 white mana source. And that's huge here.
I think he's thinking about copying the Vault Scourge with the Phantasmal Image, which is a reasonable blocker.
Yeah, well, he wants the ability to play 2 cards in a turn, and until he finds another white source, he really can't do that.
And it's unlikely he's going to be able to set up a position where he could use the Phantasmal Image for a much better purpose.
Well, he's looking, you see Rattle Chains also in his hand, the 2/1 Flash Flyer. It requires only blue mana. So if he wants to play 2 spells, it would be Path plus Rattle Chains or Path plus Image.
And with the decklist face-up, he knows that Myers is on 4 copies of Galvanic Blast, so sitting on Rattle Chains for as long as possible seems like a wise strategy.
Phantasmal Image will copy Vault Scourge, so Caleb now has a 1/1 flying lifelinker of his own. We go over to Paul Myers. His hand was Master of Ethereum, can't play that till he finds a blue mana, but a big pickup for him. It was a copy of the card Cranial Plating.
Unfortunately, he can't try to equip it to that Phantasmal Image.
Just pop the illusion, as it were. Phantasmal Image, remember, it's a clone, but it's actually just an illusion. If anyone targets it, it is sacrificed. So Paul will play Cranial Plating. He will equip and swing, and this is a great swing if you're a fan of Caleb Durward. He'll get to trade everything. So Path to Exile takes care of the Signal Pest, and the Vault Scourges will trade.
And bad news for that Master of Ethereum in Paul's
his
hand.
Basic's a mountain.
No basic island in this deck.
If it was basic island, he could cast the Master. He'll have to take the basic mountain. It's his only basic land.
This will turn on future Galvanic Blasts, and with Caleb being mana shy, it'll be harder for him to set up Rattle Chains to interact with that.
Yeah, but look at the board. Paul has 1 card in hand and it's uncastable. Sure, he has a Cranial Plating and some lands to put it onto, but Caleb has 16 life points and, 6 cards it looks like in hand?
A backup Path to Exile, looks like a pair of Rattle Chains now.
Yeah, 2 Rattle Chains, a Path to Exile, a Drogskull Captain, and I believe a Selfless Spirit are the cards in Caleb's hand. Now, he could really use another white source here.
There's a draw to being mana efficient and casting Drogskull Captain here. I like Caleb displaying patience here. Just flashing in some Rattle Chains, and then the Rattle Chains itself gives flash to the Captain on a later turn.
Right, he has to watch out. Remember, the Blink Moth Nexus, the one that does not do poison damage, can pump other Nexuses. So Paul does have the ability to attack with a 2/2 flyer. Those all trade with Caleb's creatures, so that's fine. But another Blink Moth Nexus, a way to make it into a 3/3, is actually a problem.
And Caleb does still have that Path to Exile, and he knows that the Mountain's the only basic in Paul's deck.
So Caleb just passes. Paul going to activate Blink Moth Nexus, equip and swing. And Paul, I don't want. It feels like he's lost here against these flash creatures. As you know, this I think is the more valuable of the 2 creature lands. The pump ability is pretty great.
Caleb's done a great job of getting Paul to play his game.
Yeah, Caleb is trading cards, and right now he'll be able to trade yet again. Deciding if he wants to path or play Rattle Chains, he will path to exile away the Nexus. No land for Paul. Post-combat, we'll play Vault Scourge. Let's see if Caleb likely to go for an end-step Rattle Chains here, and he will.
Yep, got to use that mana. Can't take it with you.
Draw for the turn is a copy of Spell Queller. That's a good draw. Can just continue to trade.
I expect Caleb to hang back on this turn and just leave up this assortment of spells he has available. Selfless Spirit, Rattle Chains, Drogskull Captain, all available. Here's an attack. Caleb happy to trade here. Can still cast a second Rattle Chains with Flash here, or that Spell Queller he picked up. Be a little aggressive to get an Ornithopter, but, you know, why not?
So Paul's okay trading the creatures, and if these cards keep trading, that's generally in the favor of one of the 2 people. I feel like that means one of the 2 of them is doing something wrong here.
Yeah, once Paul lost that Ravager, that really is where the tempo swung in Caleb's favor.
So yeah, Paul traded his Vault Scourge with Caleb's Rattle Chains, then played an Ornithopter and equipped it. Caleb played Rattle Chains on end step and said go. Caleb is being very patient in hand here on the Spell Queller, though.
And I do like waiting on it, a second Haymaker, some kind of giant creature. It could catch any of Paul's best spells. You don't have to just run it at the Ornithopter. Happy to just trade.
Ornithopter trades with Rattle Chains. Here's Arcbound Ravager from Paul Myers, Spell Queller from Caleb.
And Caleb still has another Rattle Chain should Paul produce a metal-crafted Galvanic Blast.
Well, what I like here is what Caleb's done is he can play Spell Queller, untap, and Drogskull Captain, making sure Paul never gets the Queller back. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Drogskull Captain, the uncommon from Dark Ascension, gives Spell Queller +1/+1 because it's a spirit, and more importantly, gives it hexproof. Now Caleb goes on the attack, knocking Paul down to 15.
Paul picked up a Mox Opal, so he'll be able to animate a land and then use the Opal to cast Master of Ethereum.
Yep, so plays Mox Opal, uses Inkmoth Nexus to turn itself into a creature. He now has 3 artifacts and going to play the last card in his hand, the copy of Master of Ethereum.
Though, given all the resources that he's traded away this game, the Master is not particularly large, just a 3/3 statically.
That's why I was thought about that. Maybe we'll second-guessed some of the trades that were happening here. Master's not that large, and it's not pumping that many other things.
Right.
You see, Caleb is content to try to race it. A 3/4 Spell Queller and a 2/2 Drogskull Captain will hit Paul Myers again.
And I believe that Caleb has picked up a Collected Company now, just firmly in the driver's seat.
Yeah, 4 mana. Gavany Township in play as well. So Paul, though, still drawing well off the top. This is a card which could get him the game. It's Etched Champion. That one is going to have protection from all colors. If it's going to resolve, Caleb and Paul will equip the Cranial Plating and swing with Master.
Curious that Caleb didn't try to Spell Queller that with the Collected Company. Though he has enough damage in the air that it seems like he should be able to close this game out before the Etched Champion can go through.
So there's another line he can be on. He can just end step, play Rattle Chains, and then play Selfless Spirit because it will have Flash. So that is 2 damage off the Captain, and then he'll have 3 3-power creatures. It puts Paul down to 2.
If he draws an untapped Mana Source, the Township will get him there too.
Yeah, or Companies into a Drogskull Captain, he would win. Or if he collected Companies into a Phantasmal Image to copy the Drogskull Captain, he wins. He might just be trying to take this hit and race back for victory.
Yeah, just deciding the Etched Champion is not what this game's about. He has a ton of damage in the air, and Paul's tapped off of his creature lands.
Counting up here, there's 4 artifacts, so Master's a 4/4. It's an 8/4. Caleb's at 16. He could take this. Looks like he will chump away the Rattle Chains. I'm interested that he made that play. If he draws untapped land here, well, he doesn't draw Path to Exile. That's pretty good, too. You see attacking back in the air. 3 off the Queller, 3 off the Spirit, 2 off the Captain. Paul goes down to 5.
So it looks like Paul's not going to be able to deal 16 damage on this turn.
Unlikely, yeah. There's no life link or card that gives Etched Champion life link.
And if something were to come up, Caleb still has the Collected Company in hand to try to Spell Quell it or something like that.
He will swing the team. Now, Paul drew a land and played a 4th land. He does have 2 flying blockers here. If Caleb is going to go for Collected Company, if he misses completely here, then we could have a game.
He has not missed near completely. Looks like 3 creatures.
No, and that should just about do it. Geist of St. Traft and the 4th and final Rattle Chains. This is more than enough damage to swing to win on next turn's attack.
And the Geist just represents 2 separate bodies. Paul played the card he drew for the turn. He's empty-handed. Caleb has perfect information. Should be able to close this one up.
So we have our first results from the top 8. Our backup match of James Johnson versus Jeremy Young goes 2-0 for Jeremy Young. So that is the red-green Scapeshift player defeating Jeskai Flash. Jeremy now makes it into the semifinals. He will play the winner of this match.
That's why I play 4 Spell Snares. Congratulations to both players, though. James Johnson for his top 8 and Jeremy Young for progressing into the top 4.
So the Collected Company happens. Rattle Chains jumps in front of the Master. Caleb takes damage off of Etched Champion. And, you know, these matches are finishing, and I'm going to say they're going the direction that we're we are not expecting. Second one, another clean sweep, 2-0. The number 5 seed winning. This is Kent Ketter playing Dredge, defeating Michael Janney on Zoo. So both Kent and Jeremy now into the semifinals.
That's a bit of an upset, certainly for a 2-0.
Yeah. Though one of these players, Jacob R. Kent Ketter, one of the card holder members, still has to take down Sam Jaden. The overall 1 seed on ad nauseum.
Tall order.
Yeah, doing it with Dredge is going to be hard. So Caleb, down to 13, he has a lethal swing here. There's 4 attackers, only 2 blockers possible on Paul's side.
Yep, he
2
blocked.
get through, and then that's the game.
Blocked with the rattle chains on the Giant Master. Took some damage off the Etch Champion. Still had a very healthy life total.
Caleb shows a path to exile for good measure, and game 1 goes to Caleb Durward and Bant Spirits.
Caleb's navigation in the early game there, very impressive. I feel like he took a little longer than he needed to actually close the game, but he wasn't really at a risk of much of anything going wrong. Well navigated there, and now things get a lot better with the sideboard.
Yeah, it was pretty big. We talked about how this matchup, game 1 was going to be real tough for Caleb. Him getting it, I think, is a huge steal, and we're going to show why. Let's start on Caleb Durwad's sideboard, and it starts on the very first card.
3 Stony Silence, 3 Rest in Peace, 1 Path to Exile, 2 Engineered Explosives, a Spellskite, 2 Kasali Pride Mage, 2 Blessed Alliance, and a Rock Swarm Monk. The 3 Stony Silence slam dunk for sure coming in. The Path to Exile also excellent. Engineered Explosives, you can make an argument for it being a slow on the draw, but I think it's great, probably coming in. Kasali Pride Mage, another excellent 1-for-1. Blessed Alliance, it's questionable. I like it well enough. It's an answer to Etched Champion, which is why I think we'll see it come in.
I mean, if I learned anything from that game, it's that Caleb is very interested in playing 1-for-1 Magic with Paul here. His game plan there was just to trade, and then eventually win. If that's the case, yeah, Kasali Pride Mage, Path to Exile, I even think Blessed Alliance is just fine here.
Yeah, going to be some pretty heavy sideboarding, I believe, for Durward.
Yeah, so on top of all these 1-for-1 kill spells, he gets to have Stony Silence, and that one's just, that's more than a 1-for-1.
That can win the game almost on its own.
All right, so Caleb packing a huge punch for the next game. What does Paul Myers have to answer back with?
So we have 1 Chalice of the Void, 1 Graft Digger's Cage, 2 Etched Champion, 1 Spellskite, 2 Girapur Aether Grid, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Whip Flare. No real haymakers of his own.
Yeah, so he's got these 2 Etched Champions, and I'll say Etched Champion actually looked very good in that game. I wouldn't mind seeing him go all the way up to 4 of that card.
Yep, certainly, and it seems a lot better than Master of Ethereum against a Path to Exile deck. Though given that he is a Stony Silence deck, I assume we're going to be trying to have both of those cards available to us.
So if you want some play around Stony Silence, a card that I'm interested in your thoughts in is the card Girapur Aether Grid. Yeah, this is an enchantment, 3 mana, that lets you tap any 2 artifacts to deal 1 damage to any target.
And not only are you interested in beating Stony Silence, Caleb has a lot of X1 creatures.
Yeah, Selfless Spirit, Rattle Chains, not interested.
Though you have to decide between Etched Champion, Master of Ethereum, Aether Grid, they all seem good. You can't go that heavy on 3s.
I think I want to cut all the Master of Ethereums. I don't think I want. There's 4 and 2 in the main. I don't want any.
I believe that's where I end up. You want the Etched Champion and the Aether Grid.
You could even, he has 4 Steel Overseers in the main. It's typically a great card, but he could cut down on some of those to make room. That at least makes sense.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, Overseer performs better than against, say, a red deck. So though the Stony Silence shutting it off is significant, that's a reason to maybe not want the card.
I guess my question would be if he could lock Caleb out with Aether Grid. There's some difficulty to it. If Caleb gets 2 Drog Skull Captains down, of course it does nothing. But Caleb's creatures all have low toughness.
Yep. Yeah, and the Aether Grid will certainly do work here. It's a matter of being able to generate enough artifacts to make the Aether Grid matter. But I do expect to see the card post-sideboard in this matchup.
All right, players are going to get ready for a second game here. Now, over at StarCityGames.com, we have the Commander 2016 set comes out soon, and we have some pretty good things to roll out here. So this is the Commander 2016 edition deck and set of 5 decks now available over on the website. These are 5 4-color 100 card Commander decks, and these sets include these pre-constructed decks include 56 new Magic cards. Now, also inside we have the Commander Versus Series playmats. That's from our web series featuring Justin Parnell, John Suarez, Stephen Green, and Jeremy Knoll. We, of course, have these 4 playmats for them. You can get them as individuals or as a set of all 4. These bundles are available. You can pre-order them today, and they will ship when the set is legal, November 11th. So find out more and place an order at StarCityGames.com/Commander2016.
Expecting to see some sweet cards coming out of the Commander product. There's always something interesting.
So Ryan, for second here, we have our story of our third quarterfinal. There was some hope. So game 1, Sam Jaden versus Jacob Baugh. Jacob is the 8 seed on the draw with Dredge, beats ad nauseum, and then loses the next 2. Sam Jaden continues his stomp here through the tournament. The number 1 seed advances in 3 games to the semifinals.
And that was a big thing about the matchup is Baugh just did not have anything in his sideboard that really mattered.
No, Kent and Jacob, both the card holder teammates, talking about how this matchup they think is horrible. They're not sure if they can beat it. Jacob came real close to taking the first game on the draw, but he falls short. Kent is going to get to try it again in the semifinals.
They're leaning pretty heavily on this pair of collected brutalities, and you have to have your opponent's hand just have one ad nauseum that you're able to strip away. That's really what you're looking for.
You know, and I'm going to say this is starting to look like Sam's tournament. So you look at these players left. Kent Ketter on Dredge, Jeremy Young on Scape Shift. If Caleb wins this, those 2 played in the Swiss, and Sam won that one 2-0 as well. Sam may have only players he's already. I think everybody in the tournament are players Sam has already beaten.
Caleb kept a pretty shaky hand in the game 2 that he lost. But yeah, the volume of cards he has that matters in that matchup are a lot lower than the volume of cards that he has that matter against Affinity. Your creatures matter a lot against this creature-heavy artifact deck, but they matter a lot less against ad nauseum. He needs his disruptive elements. He's not fast enough to just clock them.
So Paul Myers back on the play for the second game, currently going to 6 cards, had to ship the 7. Caleb has kept a 7-card hand. Yeah, I agree with you. The match looked one-sided. If it happens again, there may be more play to it than I think we first saw.
And there was also a very effective Thoughtseize from Jaden.
Yeah.
Caleb kept a hand on the power of Geist of Saint Traft, had it stripped away, and then Caleb drew like 4 lands. And that'll happen.
Yeah, just about that. Right now, Caleb's looking strong, up 1-0, taking game 1 in a match where he should be a favorite in both the sideboarded games.
Myers had a decent number of cards he's looking at in his sideboard, but nothing that seems to swing the matchup fundamentally, whereas Caleb has actual haymakers.
I mean, it's Affinity usually gets worse after sideboard, just because the cards that are good against it are so good.
You're kind of just hoping that they don't have anything, and well, Caleb has 3 null rods.
All right, Paul has kept on 6. We are underway for the second game. Turn 1, he will start with a Blinkmoth Nexus. Just how many permanents can he get? Springleaf Drum, just a pass. Got Cranial Plating, Etched Champion, another land here. For Caleb, it's just going to be Windswept Teeth and a go. Galvanic Blast, the draw for Paul Myers. Could have used one of those last game. But he has no pressure just yet. Plays a second land. And all right, looks like he does have a 2-drop, but it is Cranial Plating. So this is a very fair start from Affinity.
I believe his leftovers are Etched Champion and Galvanic Blast. If he's able to get the champion on the table, which Caleb really doesn't have 2-mana interaction for.
Okay, he could just win?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played Mox Opal there. He could have turned, his hand's a little awkward in that he can't turn to the Etched Champion because the Opal is. Yeah, he needs the plating to make it. Yeah, his artifact counts off.
He would have needed to have a creature to tap with the drum.
Right. Caleb will get Tempo Garden and End Step. So 2 cards remain in Paul's hand. No threats yet on the board. He's got a 1-2 punch of Etched Champion Cranial Plating, which, to be fair, could just win.
If Caleb has Stony Silence right here, that's huge.
Second land, Botanical Sanctum. Does he have it? No. Rattle Chains is his play. There does appear to be an Engineered Explosives in his hand.
Okay, that'll sweep up the champion.
But might not be, maybe not in time. Etched Champion, the play from Paul Myers. He'll use the champion to equip the plating to it and pass. So we have, from Paul right now, a 6-2 protection from all colors. And Paul's hand is 2 Galvanic Blasts.
8 points of burn. And, Paul just used that mana to equip the Etched Champion right now. He doesn't really need it equipped just yet, but he's sitting on these Galvanic Blasts. The plan is to aim those at Caleb's face. He doesn't care about any creatures. If this Etched Champion is winning, he's not winning.
So Caleb will fetch down to 18. Very conservative with his life points here, which I like. He'll need all of them. Looks like he's going to go for engineered explosives on 3. It's an answer to the Etch Champion. But he's going to take a huge hit next turn, right? It's a 6-2 already. Paul could activate those lands, make it an 8-2, put Caleb down to 10, 8 points of burn. I mean, I'm feeling it, you know? He's not far away.
It would be very easy to sweep up with an Aether Grid from there.
So, explosives on 3 is the play for Caleb. Now he's thinking, does he want to swing with rattle chains or not? It looks pretty free.
Cranial plating off the top would make this pretty easy for Myers to close. See if he's able to produce something like that. Even the 3rd Galvanic Blast would be excellent.
And now he looks like there's a question for the judge here. Caleb deciding, yeah, attack or none. His hand is good. He's got Collected Company. If he can take care of this one threat, the cleanup should be there. Draw. It looks like an artifact for Paul Myers.
I believe Springleaf Drum.
Okay, that'll play. Any artifact he can dump onto the board is 1 point of damage.
True. Can cast that, activate one of the creature lands, and don't want to attack him in the rattle chains. Just have it hanging back so that your cranial plating will pump your S champion more.
Activates Blink Moth Nexus. Taps Mox Opal. This is neat. Okay, Galvanic blasts away the rattle chains. Swings here for, all right, I'm going to count it up here. The Blink Moth Nexus attacks for 1. The S champion is going to attack for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So an 8 points puts Caleb down to 10. I'm not sure this was better than just shooting that upstairs.
I believe it was actually just worse.
Well, you can hold on here. This does mean that Paul can make a play next turn of activate Blink Moth, move the plating to Blink Moth. He can start doing, he can put Caleb in that bind. Keep in mind, between Springleaf Drum and Mox Opal, he has black. So there's the chance he can toss around the cranial plating at instant speed to sneak some damage.
What bodies is he moving it around from, though? With his
if he draws a Memnite.
When Caleb sacrifices this explosives, then he just has 2 mana untapped. Could be Rattle Chains, could be Path to Exile. I find it very unlikely that this Blink Moth Nexus is going to be able to connect.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work that has to happen for the line Paul took to be worth more than just shoot your face. As it stood on the board, Paul could have put Caleb to 1. Now, I get that 1 isn't 0, but when you have creature lands in play, it's close. Well, how about another cranial plating? That's Paul's draw. A turn too late to win the game.
Right. If that was his turn if that was his draw last turn, this game is over right now. Yeah.
So how does Paul want to play this? He's going to activate Blink Moth Nexus. His hand, Galvanic Blast, Cranial Plating. He's got one more. Going to use Mox Opal. I like this play a lot.
Big fan of moving it onto the Nexus. Caleb just has to use this explosives on the Etch champion.
Moves Plating to Nexus. Swings just Blink Moth Nexus. Why would we not swing the champion?
That I very much disagree with.
Spell Queller flashed into play. Now hold on. Before Caleb goes to block, Paul can use the drum and champion to shoot the Spell Queller.
True. That allows him to connect. Yeah.
All right. 4 damage, no blocks, no Queller. So Blink Moth swings in. And look, he's counting up the artifacts. He's got 5. Let's make that 6 points of damage. Caleb goes to 4.
Okay. Now he's just dead to the 3rd Galvanic Blast again.
It's not the way I expected we'd end up here, but it's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, equipping the cranial plating over there and getting in more points, that was well played by Myers.
Caleb's hand is 2 copies of Collected Company, Spell Queller. This is awkward because I think he has to crack Engineered Explosives, but if he does, he's dead to plating. I'm not sure Caleb's going to find a window to sack that.
I might just have to go for Collected Company here. But this champion's just lethal with that plating.
If he goes for Collected Company, then Paul just moves plating onto champion, and then we're done.
So, question is, did Caleb board out Phantasmal Image? Because if he collected companies into Phantasmal Image, that's a non-colored permanent. He can
yeah, and
copy
it
the
can,
Etch Champion because it doesn't target,
right.
and then just have a 2/2 to block it.
Ooh, I like that. Another land from Paul. This is actually a big one. It's another Blinkmoth Nexus.
Yep, that's a big draw.
All right, so nice figuring out. He's got another plating in hand. He's going to start, it looks like, by activating one Blinkmoth. Yeah. Ideally, he would like to get a plating. Let's see. Yeah, he's got to figure out how to do this just right, you know?
This is a very delicate combat step for sure.
He activates Blinkmoth Nexus. I'm assuming that's not the one he just played.
I would hope not. Well, if the plane is just a drum to make colored mana.
No, he puts plating on it.
Yeah.
Swings just the Nexus. I don't get this one. I don't know why. Why are we not coming in? I understand that, like, the champion. This doesn't make sense to me.
He's representing colored mana, but Caleb would just be dead to a Galvanic Blast.
Just get in your 2 free damage, then get in your 2 free damage again. He's got Collected Company. Your guy's not getting through. You could have put Caleb to 2 here, and then the next swing's lethal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is curious.
Well, he's going to lose the game on it. Caleb's going to he's going to company into some spirits, trade with the Nexus, blow up the explosives, and that's going to be the end of the game.
If Paul's able to resolve an Aether Grid from there, which he does not have in hand, that's what he's looking at. Galvanic Blast still lethal.
2 blockers here from Caleb. Yeah, he's going to trade just fine. Yeah, this is... Okay, they'll trade. And Caleb, I think, is going to get the game now. I don't see how Paul gets out of this. His champion. Yeah, this...
I don't know what the motivation for that was.
Post-combat, he'll play another cranial plating. If he ever can connect with a creature again, that'll be very strong. It's going to be a challenge for him to do that.
Well, he only needs to deal 4 points. You don't need 2 cranial platings to do that.
So, yeah, it's...
To be fair, on the previous turn, instead of Collected Company, Caleb could have had, Rattle Chains, Pop Explosives. That would have swept that up just the same.
All right, so now Caleb with the strongest comeback possible. Cracks Engineered Explosives. Gets rid of Paul's Etch Champion. Taps 2, plays Stony Silence, and says go.
Important to do this in that order so that you don't turn off your own explosives with the Stony Silence.
Yeah, that does work that way.
Bit of a non-bow in the sideboarding, I suppose, but when you sequence it that way, everything's fine.
Yeah, question as to whether or not Paul swung with the Axe Summoning Sick Blinkmoth Nexus. One thing is that verbally, as long as he says, attack with the one I can attack with.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Fine.
Doesn't matter that one's foil and one's not. It's the same card.
So I believe that he gave verbal confirmation to Caleb that he was attacking with the right one, and that's enough. You don't have to actually track where the physical card is.
Sort of like when you shortcut the same creature that's dying entering the battlefield. I'm going to put this copy in my graveyard.
If I have 2 of the same creature in play and you kill spell one of them, and one of my 2 is foil, I just always bin the non-foil one. It's like, no, you meant to kill that one. I'm going to play with this one. Land here from Paul, but his artifacts are all quite silent now as Caleb collects more company here into Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, not much company.
It doesn't need it, though. He's got the Trump down. He's got that Stony Silence. 2 mana from Caleb. Gets to start playing again. Here's Selfless Spirit. Pumping the Wanderer. He starts attacking. He gets to play this whole game with Spell Queller up. He's got 2 Quellers in hand.
The only thing
Stony down.
The only thing he has to be mindful of is Aether Grid, and he has that covered with the Spell Queller.
Yeah. Paul would need enough mana to make 2 Aether Grids in 1 turn. And because Mox Opal and Springleaf Drum are shut off, that's just not a thing he can draw into.
There are Glimmer Voids in the deck, but He'll be dead long before he's able to assemble that kind of material.
Yeah, the Bant Spirit's speed at turning the game around is not small. See, Caleb with Queller, Drogskull Captain in hand. So I'm guessing we will see an end step 2-3, and that's what he'll do. It doesn't matter that Paul didn't play anything. So we untap. Looks like another Stony drawn here for Caleb. Not that Paul can destroy the first one, actually.
Right. That's a blank draw, but Caleb still has plenty of stuff to work with here.
No cards like Nature's Claim in the sideboard for Paul Myers here. So Noble Hierarch's the play. In the air right now, there is 5 damage from Caleb. If he plays Drogskull Captain, it gives him 4 more. So he put Paul down to 9. He actually just can play this so conservatively, though. He swings just Selfless Spirit to put Paul to 16.
Yeah, he wants to hang back a creature that can block an animated creature land, which makes sense.
Yeah.
He's at 4. And given the 2 Noble Hierarchs, attacking with 1 creature makes more sense than attacking with 2.
And that's actually for 4 damage, the Hierarch's Exalting. Paul, though, just drawing a Nexus and cast and playing it says go. Remember those cranial platings. They're not going to do anything anymore. Mox Opal, not mana. There's an Ornithopter in play for Paul. Eventually that can chump block. But you see, and now Caleb's going to start pushing the issue. Here's Drogskull Captain, giving all of his creatures hexproof and +1/+1. That's an extra point of power for Mausoleum Wanderer. So Mausoleum Wanderer pumps to a 2/2, Lord to a 3/3, exalts to a 5/5, and it's going to be some chump blocking here from Paul Myers. So 1/1/1 count on the Wanderer. It actually is still alive thanks to Drogskull Captain. Those other bonuses were temporary.
Myers needs to Runner, Galvanic Blast, Aether Grid, and Caleb needs to not have a second Spell Queller.
Yeah, so right, Galvanic Blast and Gear per Aether Grid are the only 2 cards that Caleb needs to counter. Here's Arcbound Ravager. I'm guessing Caleb will let this resolve.
Yep, no problem with your 1/1 ground creature.
Yeah, remember, can't use any abilities, so fine by him. Another land for Caleb. 2 turns away from, I think, closing this out. He's going to play a Selfless Spirit pre-combat. Let's making sure that nothing dies in combat that Caleb doesn't want to be gone. There are still creature lands on Paul's side of the board and an Ornithopter available for blocking. It's counting now. There's that Darksteel Citadel up at the top of Paul's screen, so we can activate the Nexus. So Caleb's going to go for a pretty conservative attack here. Can't swing that Spirit. That one he just cast.
Actually can't animate the Nexus because Citadel is the land. That's not a mana source under the Stony Silence.
So we'll back up here. Caleb can't swing that top Selfless Spirit, but yeah, puts it back. Drogskull Captain instead. You're right, actually. Yeah, that's why it's with the others that the land doesn't do anything. So there's only 1 blocker available for Paul, and it would be a chump block. So the swing is for 8.
Ornithopter not known for its ability to block profitably.
Yeah, it's good for blocking 1. 1 power, guys. See, if I were inventing Magic cards, I would print Ornithopter, but with Flash, so that you could block with it better.
Yeah, I'm sure that that card would promote healthy and interesting gameplay.
How sweet would Ornithopter with Flash be?
Medium?
I mean, it wouldn't be any better, okay? That's not what I'm saying, but it'd be sweeter. And that is all she wrote. Paul Myers packing it in, and a Caleb Durward 2-0 sweeps through the matchup and sweeps his way into the semifinals.
Bant Spirits, a deck that Caleb's been working on, playing the deck on stream, and going into the top 4.
Congratulations here to Caleb. He's been, streaming it for a while, innovating the deck, and now showing its strength, beating one of the top decks in the format. That Affinity in the hands of Paul Myers. So with that, that's going to complete our quarterfinal action. Caleb